Previously on The Business.
This morning, Colin Browne is the founder of Sales Guru. Colin, welcome. Good morning. It's great to have you here in the studio this morning.
Thanks very much. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Tell us a little bit about Sales Guru. You have a very sexy website, which is in front of me right now. But just give us a bit of an overview as to what you do.
Well, so that's a company that I co-founded with two other guys, Mark Keating and Brett Wood. So three of us sort of set up on this journey in 2006. They're running that now. That's their baby to run with. But it's a great business. It's we initially started with a sort of a magazine. That was the concept. We thought we just like, you know what? It's a classic entrepreneurial journey. You see something you hate and you think, I can fix that. So that's what we did. So we launched a magazine because there wasn't one about sales in South Africa, and the general perception about sales typically is always that 20% of the people do 80% of the work, and 20% of the people bring in 80% of the money, and 20% of the clients bring in 80% of the money, and all it creates is this sort of negative stigma about sales. So it's something that I'm very passionate about anyway, regardless. It creates this negative stigma. Companies are reluctant to hire. Salespeople have a bad attitude. They have a bad feeling about themselves. People have a bad attitude about them. All the guys you see down the keg at 3:30 in the afternoon, you know that they're salespeople on a Friday. We thought we could change that. The reason we actually got into that in the first place was we thought we could materially change that. We thought if we could actually create the perception, and not just the perception, but make that a reality, that sales is a professional thing to do, a professional vocation, then we might just be able to alter that. That 80-20 to 70-30 or something like that. The increase in income for businesses and salespeople alike would have been huge, absolutely huge. So that was that. It then went into sales training, and then went into live events and so on. So that's kind of what the business does now. And they're doing very well over there. In fact, they were just up the road here in Sunny Hill. I can do that visually.
You can, yeah, you
Point
can.
and do all sorts of things.
So, Colin, I've got a question about this term serial entrepreneur. Did you coin that, or did
No,
a very good journalist do that for you?
No. Well, actually, I am a very good journalist. That's kind of been my profession. But I'm a very good journalist. I don't know. If you use the term serial entrepreneur, perhaps you're not. I don't know. It's one of those things that gets knocked around, and I kind of wish, in a way, I hadn't ever sort of used that, because I do hate the idea. It conjures up the notion of people, starting a lemonade stand outside their home at the age of 9 and calling themselves an entrepreneur. And were they hell? There were people who sold lemonade for pennies, right, and spent it all on gum. That's not what entrepreneurial endeavors are. That's not what entrepreneurship's about. What I mean by it is I've started a number of little businesses that went absolutely nowhere. And I did those in my adult life, so I feel like they might actually be businesses. They were registered PTYs or CCs or whatever they were. And learning the ropes as I went along. Sales Guru was really the first big hit that I had. Happy Sandpit's now the second one that's the sort of major focus of my life now. And I think what happens is it's not so much a flag to wave, look at me, I've started lots of businesses. It's more of a bunch of scars, look at all the mistakes that I've learnt from, really. That's what it's about. Hopefully you make fewer and fewer as you go along, but I'm not sure that's always true.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how to build a happy sandpit. Let me hold it up here for the cameras. I read something about you employed somebody who was one of those people we call employees from hell.
Now that is a Sales Guru story, actually.
Right.
Yes.
So I want to know more about that, because I'm going through something like that.
No, I think everybody does, and I think that's why I've got a journey here. I think that's why I've got the only reason I've got anything worth doing here is that this is the most common problem of all. So here's what happened. We did all the common things. Now we were actually very good. We hired a very good team, as it happens. But we were more lucky than anything else, I think, now when I consider what happened. We hired this one employee who was pure toxic. I mean, she was there's a journalist in me, pure toxic.
I'm a journalist too, so I can totally relate to what you're saying.
Toxin, I think, is the word you're looking for.
Thank you very much.
Toxicity, gentlemen.
1.5 hours.
Toxicity, yes.
It was pure toxicity.
Right.
Now, I'm not entirely certain that this employee would have been brilliant anyway, to be completely honest with you, but certainly she was a bad fit for us. And that was the thing that kind of got me wondering, because I don't believe as a leader you can just shrug it off and say, lousy employee, it's their fault. You're the one who hired them in the first place. You're the one who let them through the door in the first place. You had interviews, you had references, you had all of these opportunities to find out whether they were right for you. And you know what? You deserve the people you have, especially if they're ones you've hired. If you've hired well done, you deserve that. If you've hired badly, it's your fault. You hired them. You deserve it. And that was the thing. So I kind of looked at this and I thought, how have we got this human being here? She doesn't fit us. She's not anything like the way we are. And so really the journey was about trying to learn ways to avoid doing that in the future. And one of the things, and the happy sandpit sort of metaphor came along through the process of that, and it goes a bit like this. Employees in a company are a little bit like children in a sandpit.
Oh, totally.
Right. So when you have the right children playing in a sandpit, they'll build sandcastles, and maybe very elaborate ones, right? And one will
Flags
run off
on top.
Yeah,
and-
one will run off, fetch a bucket of water, they'll build a moat. They'll have such a good time doing it that they'll want to do it again tomorrow, which means that you can sit on the adults' table and have adult conversations. Maybe that's a metaphor for strategy and leadership, right? You supervise a sandpit because you're not crazy, but you don't have to get involved. But put one little bugger in that sandpit who thinks it's okay to kick sand in somebody else's face, or who won't share the bucket and spade, and someone's going to start crying. And the sad thing is it's rarely the sand kicker. It's usually somebody else. As soon as somebody's crying, you're off the adults' table, you're back to managing the sandpit. This, by the way, is an observation of my little girl who's watching her play at one of those restaurants with play areas.
It's taken you how many years to work this out?
Yeah, well, that's the terrifying thing.
Exactly.
That's a terrifying thing. I'm not trying to be glib about this.
No.
I do think this is really, really important.
It's
I do
really
think most
important,
companies are
yeah.
getting this wrong. But I did too. I mean, it's not like I'm some genius who worked this out. I've had to earn the scars along the way. But I know I'm right about it now. I'm absolutely right about this now. So what I'm talking about really in terms of building happy sandpits is creating environments, first of all, where happiness is possible. So that's very, very important. And there's lots of things you can do there. But there's like 3 or 4 or 5 major things. But then the other thing is hiring specifically for that culture. And my argument would be that whilst you need skills, and in certain areas you need quite in-depth skills, and it gets more tricky there, but generally we want skills, sort of normal sorts of skills. You want a C++ programmer, you can check whether they know C++ programming by giving them a computer and asking them to code something. After that, how much C++ programming they know, whether it's 5 years experience, 7 years experience, 10 years experience, and he worked at a bank and we're a bank, so we want that. That stuff, I think, is the idiocy that we all, we perpetuate this. Because what you're going to do is you're going to put that employee into the sandpit with a bunch of other employees who have to get along. And either they're going to build sandcastles or they're going to kick sand. And it's down to you. It's all your opportunity. It is completely yours to grab to avoid doing that.
Why are our leaders and managers, and I distinguish between those two, but why don't they make the connection between a happy sandpit, i.e. workplace, and bottom line?
I think it's human nature. Okay.
I mean, what is it that we keep saying it's this warm, fuzzy culture stuff? That's not for us. We don't need it.
Yeah,
what is that?
I don't believe that's the case at all. I think this is all about driving performance. It's almost, and in many ways it's measurable. I don't think there's anything warm, fuzzy about it. I think but so. To answer your first question, first of all, there are people who want to run Sweden, and there are people who want to run Zimbabwe. Right. Sweden, you want to run Sweden, you run a country that's broadly respected, where people get along, where there's a high output, everything's perceived to be high quality, everything works, there's something to be proud of, there's no potholes. Run Zimbabwe, it's take everything, put it in my pocket, and I hope I'm not getting too political for your show here.
No,
not at all. We get very political.
Okay. Take everything, put it in my pocket, and let it all burn beneath me, and I don't really care. There are a lot of people who do that because the perception is people must work. Yeah. I'm not here to make friends. You hear those sorts of things. Well, all of that's true, but I don't think you should ever say it. I think the fact that you even say those things, you're creating an imbalance of power. Now, one of the things I talk about is this myth of work-life balance. And we're all sort of striving for work-life balance, or we're told we should anyway. Now, I'm starting a business. I have a little girl. I have all sorts of things going on. And balance isn't really something I have a hell of a lot of. I don't really get a lot of Colin time. That's just something you have to accept. So, if it's something that you're really, really adamant about, that you need that, then maybe you need to rethink what you're doing with your life a little bit. Other than that, just relish what you've got because it's kind of awesome. That's not what I talk about, though. When I'm talking about the myth of work-life balance, I mean, the problem we have, the only reason we're even talking about work-life balance is because work doesn't feel like life. Right? So it goes a bit like this. I'm an adult. There's no denying that. I have an adult and I have a little one, and I can talk to them both at their levels. That's social ranging. I can do that. That's what adults, parents in particular, are able to do. I pay the bills. Nobody asks me. Nobody checks up on me. I don't have to get permission. I don't have to ask whether I can get the ATM card or anything like that. I do that, and the trust is there that I just get that done. It's transparent to Linda, to my other half. I get to pick who comes into my home. I get to pick who stays there. I have a choice in that matter. I mean, not my mother-in-law. I don't get to pick her. It just so happens my mother-in-law is awesome and amazing and wonderful, but I know that's not true for everybody. But I get to. My opinion is valued at home. It's like, it's sought on many, many issues. That's called being an adult. But when I go to work, it's very often not that way. In fact, I'm not really talking about me here, I'm generalizing, but in fact what happens is my status is dictated by the corner of the building I sit in and the desk and the chair I get. I'm told immediately, even though I'm a fully grown adult, there are things you can't do without checking with me first because I can't trust you to get them right. I don't get to pick who I work with. In fact, I get thrown into a sandpit with a bunch of other people. Or on a Monday morning, they turn up with this new employee and say, hey, here's your new colleague. And you go, God, I would never work with that person. I'd never choose them if I had the choice. So what happens is all of these things mean that I really struggle to engage with work as if it was an extension of my life. So there's balance. I look at life and I look at work and I divide the two. Companies that get that right, and there's lots of them around that are getting parts of it or all of it right, are ones that are able to extend trust better. They're able to solicit adult opinions from their workforce better, and not just get those opinions, but use them, like value them enough to use them, and those sorts of things. That's a happy sandpit. That's an environment where happiness is possible. And I think in that environment, it's crystal clear people stay longer because it's not really about the paycheck. You know that. You could probably earn a lot more money, guys, if you went out right now and, well, I don't know, sold ball bearings to companies that desperately need ball bearings. I mean, I don't know. There are easy ways to make money. There are hard ways to make money. Well, I know you guys are all massively overpaid anyway. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Boss is sitting right there.
Is he listening? but you know what I mean. We often think that, you know, we treat people like monkeys. Pizza's on Friday, that should keep them happy. No, that's irrelevant. All it is the cost. And by the way, take the pizzas away next Friday and see how much they enjoy the pizzas.
So what kind of response are you getting from business leaders and from businesses and companies in South Africa? And are these always the larger corporates or the smaller players as well who are really keen on this?
No, it's across the board. The response I'm getting vary between enthusiasm and blind confusion. I mean,
confusion.
Yeah, I do think there's an awful lot of, as you put it earlier, people look at this as sort of fuzzy stuff, and the sort of. So what are we building a happy sandpit? That means, you know, painting the walls bright colours and giving them pizzas on Fridays and going on team building sessions once a month. And actually, I can't be bothered to do any of that stuff because every time I've done it for my employees, they're ungrateful bastards a week later, and actually, I don't care about making them happy. So that's kind of, you know, and so they look at this and they go, why would I even want to talk to you about that? When we start to talk about this in terms of creating engagement and performance, there's more understanding, but there's a hurdle to get over. So there is an immediate barrier. People are kind of going, I don't think I need that in my business. Thank you very much. But the ones who are embracing it, they're across the board. I mean, I was with a company the other day that was 19 people. And they were particularly interested in this. I mean, we'll probably do something together. But this week I've got meetings set up with Renault and with larger organizations. In the book, I interviewed everybody from Raymond. I mean, I set about, when I was writing the book, I went about looking for entrepreneurs and company leaders, particularly people who'd started businesses, and I was fanatical about them only being South African ones. So I didn't want to speak to Microsoft South Africa or Ford South Africa because I have a suspicion that there's a dilution of the Ford overall umbrella culture that happens in a Ford environment here.
Definitely, yeah.
Whereas if you start Pick and Pay, it's only ever started here. Yeah. So I went and I sat down with Raymond Ackerman and Alan Knott Craig and Reg Lascaris, Ivan Epstein at Softline, but also people like Jason Lurie at Moyo, and Alan Ambor, who started Spur. The crazy Francesco Zanesi, who started Premium World, he's a genius, I swear to God. Yeah. And then there were some smaller companies. I mean, Missing Link, I don't know if you know of Missing Link in Four Ways, but they're fairly legendary in what they do. There's only 12 people there, I think. So there's a mixture of companies that get this.
And I'm always amazed when a press release or media release goes out and it's got a round number. They're always round numbers. So it says you spoke to more than 60 of South Africa's top business
You know why that happens? It's because it's a work in progress. And I initially set out to interview 100. And I realized that I would simply have too much material. So when I got to sort of 30 or 40 interviews, I'm looking at this and I knew that I was going to end up with something like 1 million words to distill into 60,000. It's just too much. You're talking hours and hours of transcribed interviews. So I set my target on 60. But when, whoever it was that came along late in the process, I didn't say, no, sorry, I've got my 60. I said, yeah, absolutely, I'll meet with you. So I think there were probably 67 in the end. But
so there's a follow-up coming.
Now, there is. But now here's what's going to happen. So I've got 2 books coming out this year. One of them is called Happy Sandpit Artifacts and Architecture, okay? I'm talking about workplaces. I'm talking about, take the Investec model where Stephen Kosseff sits in the same desk and chair as the person in the call center. It means 2 things. It means, first of all, the guy in the call center has got one hell of a nice desk and chair.
Yep.
Okay?
Must have.
It also means that whilst we accept that the company is a hierarchy, and that it must be a hierarchy, they're making it feel boom, boom. They're making it feel more like that. So, because what they're saying is we accept the CEO earns more money, but you don't need to lord it over everybody.
Right.
The number of fifth executive floors in this country that have, and it's not just here, it's everywhere, but I'm familiar with this, that have, carpets so thick and so luxurious you sink in up to your knees and you get immediately fed ice cold Evian out of cut crystal glasses and fed grapes by nubile young wenches or whatever, and you kind of go,
Can you give me their address, please?
Well, you work in the wrong place.
and they've got 4 million rand worth of art on the wall, and they say, but it's an investment for the company.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, but only 8 people are allowed to look at it. And all that does, that's another level of engagement lost, basically. So artifacts and architecture, when we talk, artifacts are the workspace, the building, the dress code, the colors, the policies, all of those sorts of the internal language. Those are the things that define us as us. And the architecture is quite interesting in terms of, do you create the dungeon on the 3rd floor for the call center people, or do you actually give them something with natural light and maybe fresh air?
Yes.
I don't know. Your choice. Do you want Sweden or Zimbabwe? The second book is Happy Sandpit Values, and that's a very, very big topic. Those will be smaller books than this.
Colin, just go back to this one that we've been talking
Yeah.
about now. By the way, it's called How to Build a Happy Sandpit. Don't you want to just hold it up there again, Astrid, for those folks who would like to see it if you can? We're talking to Colin Browne, who has written the book. Just give us a couple of tidbits out of this, because I'm drooling to read this book now after having heard what you've said. Just give us thanks, Astrid. Give us a bit of an idea of how you'd go into a company and implement them. I'm sure they're all different, but a couple of key points.
Yeah. So rule number one, and this is absolutely rule number one in any engagement that I do. If I haven't got buy-in from the very top, I'm not doing anything, because it won't work. It simply won't happen. And no matter what, and actually it's crazy how often the sand kicker is a person right at the top, or on that executive level.
So top as in C-suite, what we
Has
traditionally
to
would
be.
call C-suite
Has to be.
executives.
And actually, I would argue that it actually has to be the CEO. Unless they've delegated that specifically, but all you need is they have to be able to live according to the values openly and obviously, in order to get everybody else to follow them. If you're not doing that, then nobody's going to, and this whole thing is absolutely pointless. So that would be the first thing that I would do. The starting point for me generally. I do a lot of surveys. I do a lot of face-to-face interviews and stuff. Now that's a journalist in me that I'm able to do that and sort of extract information and connect dots. And with 1 million tons of information, that Astrid, and you've got 1 million tons of information, you can start to put the dots together and all that. Now from that, what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to work out what the level of engagement is here. So do I actually? And the surveys are purposefully worded to be disarming. So they're not these corporate things you look at. They're obviously, they must be anonymous. That's another stipulation. If I'm going to ask people to answer things, I can't just go and feed it back to management, or I'm not going to get that.
So you design the questions.
Yes. And they're purposefully disarming. So the answers are actually, they'll make you giggle, but there's something very deep in what you're answering as you do that. And that's going to tell me some things about where you're getting things right, and we must always focus on that as well, and where we're getting things wrong. Now, my job generally is not to change culture. I think that's, people who talk about going around making culture change, I think they're being a little bit arrogant. It's and it's not my business. It's whoever owns this business. The culture is largely going to be based on him or her or the collection of them, of what they are. And for me to suggest that you should be doing something different is absurd. With one caveat: if you've got a complete totalitarian dictator at the top, if you've got Zimbabwe, you might want to look at some changes. But you don't want to go in and change Sweden. What you do want Sweden to understand is where it's doing things right and where it's doing things wrong, or where some of these things are holding it back, and where some of these things are enabling it to be the great place that it actually is. So with that in mind, the next step is to look at the values. And values, these are the most misunderstood things in the world. They're pretty words on the wall. They say respect, integrity, whatever. They say these things. If we were going to be honest about this, an awful lot of companies would put their values on the wall saying, we aspire to screw our customers as much as we possibly can until they bleed to death, because that's actually the way a lot of people do business. But we don't do that. We talk about integrity, and in the book, one of the things I'm talking
really
about.
ever believe that? I mean, honestly.
Really.
Plastered all over websites, our mission, our values.
Yeah, all of that. And here's the problem with it, though. The problem with it is that it's a bit glib.
Yeah.
Values are critically important. They're the sides. Is anybody else a parent here?
I am. Yep.
Yeah.
So they are the guidelines at the side of the path that tell people where to go. And those are basically the areas where it all breaks. we do not have relationships at work. If you have one, you're the number one salesperson here, you're fired. You've got to be. It's the only way in which we keep everybody on the path. Now, you can make that path as broad and as winding as you want, but you make sure and the values are absolutely there. Because let's be clear about this. I mean, I've had quite a sort of a lucky life. My mum and dad were married 46 years until my mum passed away. My brother and my sister, I love them to bits. We get along like a house on fire. So many people hate their siblings. Not me. They're great. Love my dad to death. He's a fantastic guy. Grew up in Belgium for the most part, so played sports against teams in Amsterdam and Frankfurt and Luxembourg. And I've had a lucky life. You know, I didn't do that, by the way. I was lucky enough to be there. But what it meant was I didn't know I had a value system until I was about 27 years old. Because values help you choose between two crappy choices. That's what they're there to do. Two easy choices is easy: chocolate or vanilla. Chocolate. Okay? A good choice and a bad choice: chocolate or nothing. Chocolate, whatever, or vanilla, however it works. Two really lousy choices. You discover that your best friend is cheating on her husband. You love them both. What do? If you side with her, you lose him. If you side with him, you lose her. The only way to determine this in the situation where there is no right or wrong is what's right for you. That's what the values are there to do. To put those on the wall, therefore, as a bunch of pithy catchphrases is absurd beyond belief. But if you can make those things resonate, if you can actually work out what they really are for you and then associate behaviors with them, so let's define it. Because we're talking about respect. Respect for you and respect for you might mean two totally different things. When I say respect, I mean drive them hard, push them until they cry because I want to get the best out of them. When you mean respect, you mean put cotton wool around them and because they're sensitive. Those are two totally different behaviors. We can't just say respect. We've got to define what it is. Then you've got to get people on board with that. So, but I'm not talking, you see what I'm saying? I'm not talking about making massive changes here. I'm talking about helping you uncover what you probably already know but are not doing. So, but it's sexy stuff, man. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Well, it's you're opening my eyes to a whole bunch of things that I'm going, I never thought of business in that way. I never thought of corporate culture in that way. I never thought of all of these things in that way. No. It's a fantastic book. You're going to be talking at the Success Summit. Is this something that you regularly do? Stand up on stage and share this passion? I mean, it's oozing out of your pores.
Yeah. No, I mean, the opportunity to talk about this is I never miss it. And so, yes, the answer is absolutely. I stand up on stage and talk about this all the time. I talk about it in small rooms. I used to, I mean, the smallest audience I've ever had was an audience of one because that was the only person that pitched up. And you know what you do when you've got one person? Give them the same talk you'd give them as if they were 2,000. Because they've turned up and they deserve it.
Yeah.
And so, I do like, I mean, some of those things are things that we do, I'll do at company conferences. Some of these things I'll do, for getaways or whatever. As far as something like the Success Summit is concerned, it's a very big, broad publicity opportunity for me. Now, I say that with respect because the job there is to deliver these sorts of lessons to entrepreneurs who are sitting in the audience and are about to fall off the precipice and make exactly this mistake if they don't know about it. Or maybe are going to sit up and go, oh, that's why. Why people aren't working, why I'm stressing all the time, why I hate my job. And I thought this was going to be this fantastic entrepreneurial dream, but it's actually a complete mess and I hate it every single day. And now I kind of get why. So that's what I'm going to be doing at Success Summit. That's my little gig.
All right. 3 questions for you then. First of all, when are you talking at the Success Summit?
I don't know that yet. And the only reason I don't know that, it's on Saturday, I'm sure of that. But the only reason I don't know that is because the schedule is always slightly in flux. I know somebody dropped out this week.
Okay.
So they had a lady, one of the speakers was dropped out. So let's shuffle the schedule.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Number 2, is your book an ebook as well as available in bookstores?
It is. It's available on Kindle. So I haven't done anything about a Kobo version. I keep on hearing that I should. Should I, guys? Vote.
I must be honest. I had to think what Kobo was for a second.
Okay. All right. It is available on Kindle. Yes, you can download that right away.
Fantastic. And it's in most of the good bookstores.
Well, it's around. So what I've been doing with it, we're working on the likes of exclusive and so on. It's not in there yet. That is a process of negotiation and so on. But you can certainly buy it right now off happysandpit.com if you're in a rush.
Okay. Well, that was my third question.
I was about to give that.
That was my third question. So you're online. Please give us your website details. Are you on Twitter? Are you on Facebook?
Yes, at www.happysandpit.com.
Yep.
Twitter is at Colin J. Browne. Now, there's a J in the middle there because, a long story. But
there's another Colin Browne.
No, but my first email address was colinjbrowne@hotmail.com. It then became colinjbrowne@gmail.com.
Right.
So I made my Twitter handle Colin J. Browne, and it's just kind of stuck. So now I call myself Colin J. Browne, but you don't have to.
What does the J stand for?
James.
Okay.
Yeah.
Colin
Fantastic.
James Browne.
But it's Browne with an E on the end, so it's ColinJBrowne.
Got you.
That's on Twitter. and you'll easily find me elsewhere if you do that.
All right, I'm going to make sure that we get that up on the website. In fact, let me say Kriya will make sure that we get that up on the website.
It's already on Twitter.
And it is
so
on
fast.
Twitter as well. So
yes.
Colin J. Browne, that's on Twitter. You can go and have a look at the website, which we've been talking about as well, which is happysandpit.com. Colin, what a pleasure to have you on the show today. What an insightful chat.
Oh, great.
And I'm going to pick that book up on Kindle and go and read it. I think there's a lot to
Fantastic.
be taken from that.
Fantastic.
Thank you for your time today. Good luck
welcome. Thank you.
with what you're doing. I think it's a great thing.
Great.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Take care. There you go. One of the speakers at the Success Summit 2014 happening this coming weekend at the Santon Convention Centre. And don't forget, we are going to be giving away tickets. We'll give you full details before the end of the show. Colin J. Browne on the show this morning from the Happy Sandpit and co-founder, I would imagine, of salesguru.co.za as well.
The Business on balls.co.za. Brought to you by FNB Business Banking.